in this video, we're going to start looking at budget. Okay. So the government is run like a company, and like a company, the government has receipts and expenditures, similar to how we run our own house also, right? So we have a certain amount of money that is coming in as a salary, and we have certain expenses. So these are called receipts and expenditures. The government has to tabulate these receipts and expenditures. Not only that, the government has to tell the parliament what its expected receipts and expenditures are for the coming year. The government does this by presenting a budget. Article 112 mandates the government to present an annual financial statement in the parliament. This statement contains the budget. So, if you have already gone through the polity series videos, you would know that Article 112 mandates the government to present an annual financial statement to the parliament, and this statement contains the budget. It is necessary to understand that although the budget document is for one fiscal year, there will be carry forwards, debts, shortages, and excesses. Hence, the budget will have an effect on the years to come as well. Right, for example, in the year 2022, let's say the budget was for 5 lakh crores, but the government only managed to spend 4.5 lakh crores. So you have extra 50,000 crores that you can carry forward to the next year. So it is not necessary that the budget will only have an effect on that particular year. It can have an effect on the years to come as well, because the budget will have carry forwards, debt, shortages, excesses. Hence, the budget is also split into two parts. The first one is revenue budget, and the second one is called the capital budget. What does this mean? We will just look at it right now. The revenue budget contains items pertaining to that current financial year. This is known as the revenue account. Revenue budget contains items pertaining to that particular financial year. That is known as revenue account. And the best example is, let's say, the salaries of government employees. This is shown under the revenue budget because that is only for that financial year. Operational expenses or operating expenses for a particular department of the government, that will also come in revenue budget. Right? Maintenance, that will also come in revenue budget. Okay. So these are all the things that will come under revenue budget. It contains items pertaining to the current financial year. The second one is capital budget. The capital budget contains those items that concern the assets and liabilities of the government. This is known as capital account. I repeat, the capital budget contains those items that concern the assets and liabilities of the government. That is known as the capital account. Now, let's say the government is building a huge campus for government offices, and it will take up to 2 years or 3 years to build. Now, this will become an asset for the government. The building will become an asset for the government. So, expenditure will happen from the capital account, and it can be spread over 2, 3 years or 5 years, or for even for more. There is no limit as such. So let's say you're building a road, a really long highway, let's say a national highway. Then that work might not get completed within a particular financial year. There will be some shortages in this financial year, excesses, all that can be adjusted. But whenever there is asset creation involved or capital that is being created, some asset is being created through capital, then it is through the capital account. Just operational expenses throughout the financial year is looked at in the revenue budget. Wherever asset creation is looked at, then we go to the capital account. Not just creation, even selling. Now, let's say the government is selling a building, that also comes to capital account. Okay. So, if we look at the diagram that we have here, it becomes very simple. The government budget is split into two parts, that is, into revenue budget and capital budget. Then revenue budget is further split into receipts and expenditure, that is revenue receipt, revenue expenditure. And similarly, if you look at capital budget, you have capital receipts, capital expenditure, right? So every budget has receipts and expenditure. We have two kinds of budget, that is revenue budget, capital budget. Revenue budget has revenue receipts and revenue expenditure. Capital budget has capital receipts and capital expenditure. Right. Now we have to understand what are the components of revenue receipts, what are the components of revenue expenditure, what are the components of capital receipts, and what are the components of capital expenditure. Okay, we will look at this in detail in the coming videos, but right now I will just give you an overall bird's eye view. Okay, so revenue receipts has tax revenue and non-tax revenue. These are the two components of revenue receipts. For example, you pay income tax, right? If you pay income tax, that is tax revenue. That goes to revenue receipts under revenue budget, under the overall government budget. Okay, so tax revenue is a form of revenue receipts. Non-tax revenue can be something like a cess, right? You have education cess. So all this cess, fines, etc. All of this come under non-tax revenue. So non-tax revenue also forms a part of revenue receipts. So revenue receipts has two major components, tax revenue and non-tax revenue. Now, if you look at revenue expenditure, you have planned annual expenditure and non-planned annual expenditure. That is planned revenue expenditure and non-planned revenue expenditure. So what are the components of planned expenditure? What are the components of non-planned revenue expenditure? This we will look at in detail in the coming videos. Okay. Similarly, what are the components of capital receipts? We'll see in the videos to come. So, but if you look at capital expenditure, again, you have planned capital expenditure and non-planned capital expenditure, similar to how you have planned revenue expenditure and non-planned revenue expenditure. Each of these has a lot of subsets, and we will look at the subsets in the videos to come. But you just have to understand that the government budget is split into two parts, that is revenue budget and capital budget. And revenue budget is split into revenue receipts and revenue expenditure. Capital budget is split into capital receipts and capital expenditure. Revenue budget mainly deals with the operational expenses of the government. Capital budget mainly deals with those items which create assets or that create liabilities. This is what you have to understand. We'll continue with the budget in the next video. Thank you.